One of the hardest things that you will ever face in your classroom is classroom management. Everything could be set for the year. You got your lesson plans together, you got your room set up, you feel confident, but then you get that really bad class. I'm gonna go over 6 methods that I use to help maintain order in my classroom. Real quick shout out to Isaac, Zach, and Peyton for helping me out with this YouTube video's thumbnail. Thanks, guys. One of the things I learned very early in my teaching career was not calling out a student by name when it comes to behavior. Let's say that Bryce is over there on his phone. He's over there just hanging out on his phone thinking he's getting away with it. Then that's when you need to act. Instead of doing this, Bryce, get off your phone right now. You could do this instead. Hey guys, really quick, I see some people are still on their phones in here. Please put the phones away. I don't want to have to write anybody up. So just make sure you get your phone away. You know who you are. Even when it comes to little things such as smartwatches or AirPods or whatever they are using, just depends on your school, where you teach at, you can address that situation without causing chaos. That is the goal, is to address the situation without bringing attention to the student. Because sometimes that's what students are really trying to do, is to try to get the attention. So if you call out Bryce in the middle of class, everybody's gonna have his attention on him. I've given him my attention, so everybody's going to be freaking out. Bryce is gonna be like, I got everybody's attention, now let me really cause some chaos. So you have to control that. Don't address him specifically, address it to the class, and you should be able to move on from that situation. Another method that I use for classroom management is a word count. Say you got that one student who keeps talking during your lesson, you've told him to be quiet several times, and yet nothing happens. That is when you need to apply this method. This is what you need to do. Brayden, I'm gonna put you on a word count. Zach, can you come up here and keep track? Brayden, you are only going to have 20 words for the rest of the class period. So you still got 35 minutes. You have 20 words left. Zach, make sure you keep track on the board. So by giving him that number, it kind of turns into a little bit of a game, trying to keep him in check, and also throwing one of his friends in there as well, trying to push him to that limit. That kind of helps maintain that classroom management. They're saying, hey, this kid only has 20 words left. Yes, I'll get him to say 20 more words, but then he's silent for the rest of class. It sounds like a weird method, but it's worked numerous times in my classroom. One of the best methods for classroom management, honestly, is the seating chart. Having kids specifically placed in certain desks away from specific students really helps keep the peace in the classroom. They're not sitting there talking the entire time. Yes, you will get those students who will sit on one end of the room and one on the other, and they'll be yelling at each other, but it does solve a lot of issues. If you keep them separated with the seating chart, it makes your life a lot easier because they're more likely to actually pay attention to the lesson instead of turning and talking to their friend. One thing that teachers forget too is you are the teacher. If you have a seating chart that doesn't work, switch it. I have helped out a lot of teachers who sit there and think, oh, I already made the seating chart, I can't change it. Why not? It's your classroom. Go ahead and change it. If it's not working for you, switch up the class a little bit. You may come up with a better seating chart. Another great method for classroom management is simply wandering the room. I was never a big fan of being in front of the room the entire time while I was teaching. I always like to wander around. I always like to wander up and down the desk. I have a clicker, so when I'm using a PowerPoint, I can keep moving forward. Even with my Kahoots, the clicker works, and it allows me to be amongst the kids and really just to keep track of what they're doing. I'm not a huge fan of laptops in the classroom, so most of my notes are done, in a notebook, and so I can go around and monitor, making sure that they're on track. Just having my presence around them automatically keeps them fairly quiet. There will be times where I will actually sit at a desk while I'm talking. Maybe it's a lecture day. I'll be sitting there explaining something about US history, and I'll be just sitting in the chair, and it's kind of fun because I really get to know the kids one-on-one because I'm sitting right next to them, kind of looking directly at them. It kind of changes the learning experience. So being amongst the kids, wandering around the room is an excellent method for classroom management. You do have to be careful though, because sometimes they leave their books or their book bags out, and then this happens. And that is when the English decided to start showing up. One method you can use that a lot of teachers have trouble with is waiting. With this method, it really comes down to being able to read a situation. This method applies to someone who, maybe cussed somebody out, they slammed something on their desk, they took something from another student. Pretty much a situation where that student will feel kind of embarrassed. In those situations, a lot of teachers will just be quick to really act fast, write them up, kick them out of class, which, if that's your style, go for it. But what I have found to work in those situations is to simply just wait. Sometimes just letting that student sit there and knowing that every single person in that class is talking about them or just kind of looking at them, sometimes that's punishment in itself. I'm not saying this is a good thing, but sometimes it does kind of drive home to the student that, yeah, I messed up. Yeah, I overstepped. I need to sit back and rethink some things. Once they've had that time to sit there for a little bit, that's when I move in and start talking to them. Once they've cooled down a little bit, we address the situation, everybody involved, privately, not in front of the class, privately, and that usually resolves the situation right there.
Again, though, you have to be careful with this one. You really have to read the situation. Sometimes it works, sometimes you do need to take action right away.
The last tip I want to give for classroom management isn't really for everyone. I like to use it just because of the relationships I build with my students over the course of the year. So what I have in my classroom is a squirt gun. And so I like to use this on some students. You know, when they're acting out, they're talking too much, I can just sit there, hit them real quick, and it takes care of the problem. It's fun, kids get into it. Sometimes I hand it off to another kid to help, manage that student who's acting out. And it's fun, but it helps maintain order. Obviously, not everybody can use a squirt gun in the classroom. It doesn't fit your teaching style or your personality. If you use it on the wrong kid, it could get pretty bad. You have to be careful when using a squirt gun because you could get that kid who's not having a good day, they have their head down, you hit them, and it could make them really mad. So you always gotta make sure you understand the situation. Shout out to Jace Fenley, the squirt gun. It was always used on you. Those are some of the methods that I use when it comes to classroom management. At the end of the day, it really comes down to those relationships you build with the students. Obviously, you're not going to reach every student. There is going to be one student who's always going to cause chaos in your room. Believe it or not, you're just going to have to grin and bear it because there's nothing you can do about it. Try to work with the student, try to keep them under control. It may be a battle that you'll have to face daily for that whole semester or for that entire year. For you first year teachers out there, this is going to be one of the things that you're really going to struggle with in your first year of teaching. It's going to be difficult. It's hard to establish a system in your classroom when it comes to classroom management because when a student acts out, you really don't know how to act. Yeah, you may have some tricks up your sleeve, but when it happens, it's going to throw you off. Say that Johnny decides to hit Bryce over here, it's going to throw you off a little bit and you're not going to know how to really react. So that first year, just remember, you are new to the profession. Nothing's going to run perfectly. Even your classroom management is not going to run perfectly. So do your best, try to maintain order, and just keep moving forward. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon.